Hi, I'm actor Ian Champion, and welcome to History of Horror Cinema, my podcast series devoted to the good, bad, and the ugly of horror movie history. Please don't forget to like what you hear and hit subscribe. I have such sights to show you. The Devil Doll, 1936. The downward slide of Tod Browning's directing career had begun with his most recent film, the disappointing Mark of the Vampire, and increasingly he found it hard to get projects off the ground at MGM. He wanted to make a voodoo tale called The Witch of Timbuktu at the end of 1935, but this was blocked at script stage due to pressure from the British censors. In The Monster Show, Browning aficionado David J. Scal records, Great Britain had requested the removal of all black characters, for fear that the witchcraft scenes would stir up trouble among blacks under British colonial rule, a level of appalling fear-mongering racism that also weirdly echoes the plot we saw in the extinction of the occult knowledge by the authorities within Revolt of the Zombies. Browning was, however, able to reshape his story into The Devil Doll in 1936, which combined his oft-used theme of revenge with voodoo-esque hocus-pocus in modern-day France. It was loosely based on Abraham Merritt's 1932 novel Burn, Witch, Burn, one of the writer's works steeped in his fascination for witchcraft and the occult. Browning enlisted experienced genre screenwriters Garrett Fort, Guy Endor, and credited director-turned-actor Erich von Stroheim, to weave together a film that not only moves kinetically but also its audience in an unusually affecting ending for a hard-nosed vengeance picture. The premise is based around Lionel Barrymore, last seen in Browning's Mark of the Vampire as Paul Lavande, one of two escaped convicts who has spent 17 years boiling with the desire for revenge after being framed as a murderer and robber of his own bank by his three partners. His fellow escapee is mad scientist Marcel, desperate to get them safe haven back with his wife, with whom he has been experimenting on something unrevealed, yet potentially world-changing. He is played by Henry B. Walthall, who gained fame as the Confederate general locking horns with the Ku Klux Klan in Griffith's controversial Birth of a Nation. The two fugitives are taken in by Marcel's equally eccentric wife Melita, embodied by Raffaella Ottiano, who specialized in memorably macabre roles. Possessed of fierce eyes and a Nefertiti white hair streak recalling Elsa Lanchester's Bride of Frankenstein, Melita is the Lady Macbeth-like engine urging on Marcel's crackpot technology. The nutcase couple take Lavande into their confidence, showing him their incredible results in miniaturizing living dogs to 1/6 normal size. The effects in this sequence rely on a fairly basic double exposure, which only noticeably mars itself in the evident outlines around the superimposed figures. They base their rationale for such crazed ingenuity on the potential for reducing the global human population and future resource shortages. The only downside is that shrinkage of the living atoms also erases the subject's memory, yet that opens up the possibility for voodoo-style mental subjugation in the right hands. Lavande's horror at seeing them progress to their peasant half-wit servant girl Lachna, Grace Ford, is tempered by the Machiavellian Melita pointing out this usefulness of Marcel's technology in enabling a unique method of justice for Lavande if they relocate to his home of Paris. She uses the sudden death of her husband mid-process as emotional leverage to persuade Lavande. Meanwhile, in Gay Paris, Lavande's trio of sinister ex-partners have now read in the paper that their old friend is on the loose, so with feared retribution on the cards, they post a 100,000 franc reward themselves for his capture. The plot now heads into the familiar horror territory of systematic revenge carried out on the multiple guilty parties, rendered even more familiar by Browning recycling his leading man disguising himself as a little old lady, as Lon Chaney did in 1927's The Unholy Three, which I covered earlier. To be fair, the drag impersonation allows Barrymore an added dimension of compassion and vulnerability that prevents his grim, furrow-browed mission calcifying into a one-note performance. This is emphasized in his scenes with his daughter Lorraine, Maureen O'Sullivan, who had been playing Tarzan's Jane for MGM and went on to a long and praiseworthy career, as well as being mother to actress Mia Farrow. He cannot bring himself to reveal his real identity when he visits her at the laundrette she has been reduced to slaving in. He must care for her at a remove whilst in disguise, which only fuels his need for vengeance even more. One by one, the three banker scumbags are dispensed using the rough and bizarre justice of Marcel's scientific breakthrough, and some much more impressive special effect scale work. Arthur Hole's Radin is astounded by the old lady's amazing, obedient toy horse, and visits her, whereupon he is paralyzed into becoming a servile mini-mannequin himself. Next up, Lavon's old dame sells a Lachner doll to the wife of the second criminal, the bearded and rotund Cuvée, Marx Brothers film veteran Robert Gregg, and negotiates some convincingly upscaled bedroom set furniture to administer a bedside manner of poisoned dagger paralysis to him and steal his wife's jeweled necklace. If this is beginning to sound like the story of Browning's The Unholy Three, the blatant reworking goes further. A police inspector comes to make routine theft inquiries connecting the old lady to the robbery, and the ensuing furtive hiding of the jewel plays as an almost identical but less tense rehash of Chaney's scene in the original movie. By now, the last evil member of the triumvirate has the benefit of a police protection detail around him. Yet Lavon has threatened him in an encoded letter that unless he confess and be saved, he will still die at the stroke of 10. Even a room full of cops can't save him from the remote-controlled Radin, hidden with macabre humor as a Christmas tree bauble. As he is about to be stabbed in the leg by the mini-assassin, Radin owns up, and Lavon is at last exonerated. Usually in horror films of the period, this is where the movie ends, and often in a detrimentally rushed climax. One of the plus points of the extra running time that takes the Devil Doll to 78 minutes is that after Melita fails to convince Lavon to go on with the work, the purgative laboratory blaze that follows permits a little more breathing space for character resolution, and leads him to make restitution with his daughter. Their last meeting is most sensitively handled by the actors and Browning. Lavon, as himself, pretends to be a friend, instead of revealing who he really is to Lorraine. He expresses all his pent-up love, regret, and future hopes for her as if conveying them as a second-hand message, his final parting atonement. He leaves her and her boyfriend, exiting with the self-sacrificing heroism of Rick Blaine in Casablanca, and giving the Devil Doll an unexpected and touching ending. Thanks for listening, and if you like what you've just heard, don't forget to click so, and please hit subscribe. If you build it, they will come.